Social security number is the first thing that somebody steals when they're trying to steal your identity. It's the first thing that people fake when you're trying to make a fake ID. Almost every criminal has fake social security numbers. Social security is not numbers, and those kinds of national IDs are not a deterrent for crimes. They're actually a tool of criminals because it makes people feel like they have an ID of somebody when they in fact don't. And so what's happening everywhere, not just Japan, is that identification systems are being put in place to try to track bad people. But this is true with almost every kind of ID system. But bad people can get fake IDs. And it's only the sort of bad people who get caught through not having an ID and things like that. So, but anyway, to get back to the Japanese system, I think it's basically becoming very similar and will become more similar to other countries that have an ID. The other thing is because it's a human readable number series. Back when they made Social Security, it was much harder. They didn't have as much encryption and other kinds of technology. There really was no need to make that a human readable, 11-digit number. It could have very easily been a hard to read, very long number that you can't scribble down, which is different for each service or different for each session. There was a lot of technology that we could have used that would not require you to have a specific serial number. And that was just a very kind of old way of thinking. And we also didn't have enough. The thing that we tried to do for the national ID system was to put a 2-year moratorium on it so that we would talk about it and think about it before we implemented it. I don't know if I've ever written or talked about this, but afterwards, we had, I think, overwhelming amount of media now on our side. I think something 80% or some huge, more than half of the people polled, I think it was by Asahi, said that they were uncomfortable. We had, most of the big factions of the LDP had signed our letter, and it went through anyway. And I asked, some people what the problem was, and they said it would have caused too much confusion if we had stopped the bill at that point, because they had set up a group in the ministry and they had gotten all the vendors going. And that's actually when I really started getting into this whole blogging and politics and things, is that the national ID protest that I did was really trying to protest a bill that I didn't think was good, using traditional Japanese-style democratic process, which is convince the media, convince the public, convince the politicians, and get a signed petition and present it in the Diet. That's what Sakurai Yoshiko-san and I did. She was the spearhead for that, but we did that. And even though we had overwhelming support from all 3 of those groups, it just went through. And so to me, that was a very clear signal that democracy was broken. So I thought, okay, well, if this much, most people, the average person who has a grievance can't get Sakurai Yoshiko and Kamei Shizuka and everybody, the Asahi, to write about it. That's way beyond the average ability of a citizen movement. And yet, we were unable to even slow it down. And so for me, that meant that, well, the process was so strong that there was no way for citizens to interact with it in a meaningful way. And so that's why I decided to look more at how the democratic process was broken, how it could be fixed. And that's when I started getting very involved in blogging, but also getting more involved in politics.